Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you had seen the first video in this series, it had one question related to Azure AZ 103 exam. So this is the second question that I am going to discuss and deep dive into this question. So this series will contain a lot of this kind of questions for a lot of Azure and AWS exams. So my introduction: I am working as a cloud architect in Accenture with about 8 years of experience, 4 years in cloud and 2 years in cloud architecture specifically. These are some of the certifications I hold and stuff like that. Going directly to my question: your company has an active directory forest named rplabs.com. You go ahead and install and configure Azure AD Connect to use password hash synchronization as the single sign-on method. You have also enabled staging mode. After careful review, you see that the Synchronization Service Manager does not display any sync jobs. You need to ensure that the synchronization completes successfully. Which of the following would you implement to resolve this issue? So this is one of the questions regarding Azure AD, which is one of the very crucial factors or one of the very big parts of Azure and also of this certification exams. You will find at least 10% of the questions on Azure AD, and this is one of the things normally architects or, for example, cloud engineers or operators or developers will not go in do it a lot of in depth, especially in big companies, because they have a special team, for example an user access administrator team or an identity and access management team or an Azure AD team who takes care of these activities, who are the global administrators of the Azure AD and do all of these activities. Normally cloud engineers, they don't have to or architects, they don't have to think a lot about this, because all of the implementation is normally done by the separate team. But for this exam, it is very important to know this kind of questions and their answers also, and my suggestion is to not read the entire Azure AD section because it's a lot of documentation, but go over some sample question and find the relevant parts and read them and understand the concepts. So what is here they are saying? They are saying there is an Azure Active Directory forest named RP Labs, and we want to install an Azure AD Connect. So here you need to know what is Azure AD Connect, at least at a high level. So Azure AD Connect is a software that you install on a server to connect your on-premise Active Directory to the Azure AD in the cloud. So you have your on-premise Active Directory, in this case RP Labs. You also have an Azure AD tenant or whatever, an instance of your Azure AD in the cloud. So you want to synchronize your information. You want to have only one identity. You don't have to want to have users both in your on-premise Active Directory and again in your Azure AD. So they will have to remember two sets of usernames and passwords. No, the concept and the future is hybrid identity, where there will be only one identity which will be synchronized across both, and while logging in you will use the only one login to log in, basically either via the on-prem Azure AD, or Azure AD, but it will be completely transparent to the user. They will use only one username and password, as simple as that. So Azure AD Connect is the software which facilitates this synchronization. So what is this saying? They are saying password hash synchronization method. So Azure AD Connect has a lot of configuration options. So for example, one of the configuration options is what is mentioned here, password hash synchronization. What happens in this case? Your on-premise identity, right, meaning your username and password, which is stored in the Azure Active Directory. So the hash of the password and its hash, so the hash of the hash is normally stored in Azure AD. So your on-prem has your password and your username. The hash and of the hash of the password is stored in your Azure AD. Now what happens is that when somebody is trying to log in to, for example, an Office 365 or something, so you don't need to do a round trip to your on-premise AD. You can directly log in to the using the hash of the hash stored in, basically the hash or the secret or the of your password in the cloud instance of your Azure AD. So here what will happen when you log in, maybe in the same methodology where they were encrypting the password and storing it, the same methodology will be applied to your input password, and if these hashes match, then you will be allowed login. So you don't have to do a round trip to your on-premise Active Directory, which is quite good. Another method, for example, just for your awareness, is Pass-through Authentication or PTA. In this case, no credential is stored in cloud. No password, nothing hash, nothing is stored in the cloud, because many times security administrators, especially in enterprise ecosystems, they will not allow you to store password, even if it's a hash of a hash or whatever, in the cloud. So in this case, pass-through authentication is very good. So you store all your identity information, privileged identity information, in your Active Directory in your on-premise environment. When somebody logs in, they first come to the on-prem Active Directory, they see okay, everything is okay, username and password is working, and get a token, and then they go to do their next of the stuff, maybe go log into Azure AD portal or Office 365 or something, or some other federated Azure AD application. And single sign-on, everybody knows you will use your own username and password to sign into everyone. So this is all information they are saying. They are saying Azure AD Connect will be installed to basically synchronize the information from the on-premise Active Directory, and also password hash synchronization or PHS has been enabled as the sign-on method. But the most important part of this question is not this. It is you have also enabled staging mode. So this is very important. What is staging mode? So Azure, so what you have to understand is the staging, the name staging. So for example, we have many stages, right? We have sometimes a server called production server, which is the production of the final stage. Also sometimes we have a server called staging server or UAT server or QA server. So normally what is the staging server? It is not production. It is used to, for example, for testing your activity, for testing upgrades, for testing deltas, for testing code changes. So it is a UAT environment or a testing environment or a staging environment where you can make configuration changes, and once everything is working correctly in this environment, then you push those changes to your final environment, which is the production environment. Similarly for Azure AD. So if you don't have a staging Azure AD server and you have only one server, say you want to upgrade something, you want to make some configuration changes, you have to do in the production Azure AD Connect server only, which will directly affect your production Azure AD instance or your production on-premise Active Directory instance. But if you have another server, okay, for example, also similar kind of server with Azure AD installed, but their staging mode has been enabled, then what will happen? You can do a lot of testing, but your export, your synchronization export jobs to Azure AD or to your on-premise environment will be stopped. So it is like a staging version of your main production Azure AD Connect server. So when you enable this kind of a staging mode, you must know that your sync jobs which are exporting your data, all of them will be stalled or paused. Only when you again disable the staging mode and enable the normal functioning, again the data will flow, all of the synchronization will happen. So here they are saying staging mode has been enabled. After careful review, you see that the Synchronization Service Manager does not display any sync jobs. You need to ensure that the synchronization completes successfully. So why will it not display any sync jobs? Because staging mode has been enabled, because the syncing is stalled or paused. So if you disable staging mode, again it should work. So here the answer is D. Run the Azure AD Connect configuration again and disable the staging mode. So you don't even need to know about A, B and C. The trick is to know what is staging mode. Without this information, you will not be able to answer this question. All of these options will kind of like confuse you. You must know that if staging mode is enabled in my Azure AD Connect server, then synchronization will not happen successfully. All my export jobs will not happen. Everything is paused. So that is how you correlate. And this is how, for example, for all the Azure AD related questions, you need to try out a few sample questions, understand the sections. For example, Azure AD Connect, very important, you will get a lot of questions from Azure AD Connect. Another type of question is, for example, from password hash synchronization, pass-through authentication, Azure AD proxy, Azure AD password write back, conditional access, privileged identity management. These are some sections which are very, very important in Azure AD, both from knowing Azure AD perspective and also from this exam perspective. So the solution is D. Run the Azure AD Connect configuration and disable the staging mode. As always, let us go to the documentation to understand little bit more. With a server in staging mode, this is referring to the Azure AD context, you can make changes to the configuration and preview the changes before you make the server active. So just like a staging server, you make changes to the configuration, preview changes, do deltas and make modifications, because you are sure that all of this, even if something goes wrong, my production is still okay. None of this is getting exported to my Azure AD, actual production instance Azure AD. It allows you to run full import and full synchronization to verify that all changes are expected before you finally make these changes into the production environment. So this is like doing a testing. So in staging mode, there are some of the use cases to enable staging mode high availability. For example, you have two Azure AD Connect servers. One is the production one, which is using the other one. You have enabled staging mode. So nothing is happening much there. You use it sometimes for your configuration, testing and stuff, and upgrading and stuff. But when this Azure AD Connect server goes down for some reason, then you can just disable the staging mode in this Azure AD Connect server, and synchronization jobs will use this one and run successfully. So high availability. Testing and deploying new configuration changes. Say you have to change some sort of a settings in your Azure AD Connect, you do it in the staging one. Run a preview, run a full synchronization or import job, see that everything is happening correctly, and then do it in your production, and finally push the changes to your Azure production Azure AD instance or production on-premise Active Directory instance. Introduce a new server and decommission the old. Similar kind of use case. So you want to upgrade the OS of your server. So for example, your earlier one was running on 2012, you now need a 2016. So you install another 2016 server, install Azure AD Connect on it, similar kind of configuration, only enable staging mode. Check that everything is working perfectly, all the configuration jobs and everything is synchronization is working correctly. Then you disable the staging mode there and enable staging mode in your old one, and finally decommission the old one. During installation, you can select that this server will be in staging mode. This action makes the server active for import and synchronization, right? Import is happening from your on-prem Active Directory, synchronization happening, but it does not run any exports. A server in staging mode is not running password sync or password write back, even if you selected these features during installation. When you disable the staging mode, the server again starts exporting, enables password sync and enables password write back. So only when you disable staging mode, again the server will start doing whatever else it was doing, like exporting, password sync and enabling password write back and all of this. Okay, so this is what is very important, that the server will be in staging mode. So this documentation contains a lot of other things also. Okay, but I will not go over all of this. I will just show here one thing, that during Azure AD Connect installation, you will get this option to enable staging mode, and when selected, the synchronization will not export any data both to your on-premise Active Directory or Azure Active Directory. So your import and synchronization jobs will run, because without them, how will you do any testing? So based after your configuration changes, you need to do some sort of testing. So to do that, all of the synchronization and import jobs you need to run, but nothing will be exported to your production instance. Only when you disable the staging mode or do the same changes in your production Azure AD Connect, those things will go. Another part I will show you here is this part, where for example they are saying have a spare standby server for staging mode. If you have a more complex environment, then having one or more standby servers is recommended. During installation, you can enable this server to be in staging mode. So a lot of information is here. So I will share all of these links. So this is the Azure AD Connect sync, basically the staging mode enablement and all the documentation. This is the actual Azure AD Connect sync, how to understand and customize the synchronization link, and this is a very brief introduction to what is hybrid identity in Azure AD, with a focus on Azure AD Connect and how to move or migrate or synchronize the information and all of this. So all of these links I will mention. So coming back to the question and the answer, obviously the answer is D. Run the Azure AD Connect configuration, disable the staging mode. The only thing to keep in mind here, if staging mode is enabled, my synchronization will not be able to export any kind of data to the production Azure AD Connect, because this is kind of like a testing environment. So if I need it to run fully, all my jobs to run successfully, I need to disable the staging mode. So thank you everyone, stay tuned for my next video if you want, and please share your feedbacks in the comment section. Thank you.